Good afternoon. This is Sarah from the Mount Airy branch of the Carroll County Public Library. Thank you for joining me for Digital Collections Bootcamp. Today we will be talking about how to find reliable health information. Both of the resources we will be discussing in this session are found by hovering over Collections on the main CCPL website and then under Digital Collections clicking the link for online research. From here, you'll see that the databases and online research is grouped by category. We're going to scroll down to the Science and Health category, and then this is where we'll be working from today. So the resources we're going to be discussing in order to find reliable health information are MedlinePlus and Gale OneFile Science. MedlinePlus is an awesome resource to use, especially as an everyday consumer. It's a great place to find information on diseases, conditions, wellness issues, and even recipes. So let's get started and take a look. So under Science and Health, we're going to click the link for MedlinePlus, and you'll see that it opens right up to this page with all kinds of stuff going on. First thing I want to point out is that one reason we know this is reliable health information is that MedlinePlus is curated by the U.S. National Library of Medicine, which is housed at NIH, which is the National Institutes of Health. So you know that the information you're finding here has been vetted, it's good information, it's reliable, and that's important. You don't want to be searching and being led down a rabbit hole of wrong ideas. So that's one thing that makes MedlinePlus a great resource. Another thing that makes it a great resource, especially for the everyday average general public user, is that it's very user-friendly and there's a lot of information that's digestible and easy to find. So we're going to go over some of the biggest facets of this site that are really helpful. You'll notice here there's always sort of a highlight of hot button topics for now, so a lot of times those are seasonal. Right now you'll see it scrolling between coronavirus, and I think there's information on sun exposure, relieving caregiver stress, and inactivity. How does being inactive affect your body? So oftentimes check out this, what we call crawl here on the screen. There's some great topical resources that they're thinking people might be coming to and looking for, especially at this time of year. So when we get into seasonal allergy season, in the spring, beginning in the spring, you'll start to see seasonal allergy links here. So these are great places to jump off and start from. First, we're going to go through the health topics. So the health topics we have, the way to find topics are if you know the name of the specific topic you're looking for, you can search for it either by letter or by the list of topics, or you can look up health topics by where they happen in the body, specific disorders, diagnoses, tests you might have had run, demographic groups, and then there's a whole health and wellness section of health topics as well. So this is a really great way that they sort of curated and tagged this information to help it be found very easily. So today, one of the things I'm going to do a search on, I like to just show different ways to get to, is sun exposure or sunburn. So for here, one way I could find this is if I go to body location systems, I go to skin, and under skin you'll see there's all kinds of different things listed here. Let's get down to sun exposure. So here's sun exposure. So I can click on there and I get to an information page about sun exposure. And this is really great because there's links to the different subsets of information on this page. If you're interested, you can see specific clinical trials going on in this area, statistics and resources, curated information just for children's, teens, and specifically for patients. There's all kinds of stuff here. It's really cool. And then on the right hand side there is encyclopedia information, related topics, and links to information in other languages about sun exposure. So for instance, I'll click here and you can see that I can find information in Arabic, Chinese, Hindi, Korean, Somali, so all kinds of information. So that's another reason this is just a great resource, is that you don't have to be a native English language reader to be able to utilize this information. If your primary language is something other than English, please take a look and see if it is also available in your language as well. So we're going to go back and click on the main page, but that's the way to use the health topics information. And that's the same information that I noted here for this scroll. If I hit sun exposure, it's going to be the same information that's linked from there. So if I see information on here that I'm interested in, it'll also have related info. So here it talks about suntans. And if I click on suntans, here's a whole bunch of information about suntans. And it's very digestible. It's not too scientific, so it's great for the everyday citizen who maybe you don't have to have a medical degree to be able to understand what's going on in here. So that's just one reason that Medline is just awesome. Another main section here on the front is drugs and supplements. So if you've recently been given a prescription for a drug and you want to learn more about that drug, or it's been suggested that you take some supplements or herbs, by a medical provider, this is a great way to learn more about that drug. So one thing I can think of for thinking generic or brand name, I'm going to click on A, and I know that I take Allegra for my allergies. So I am going to scroll down to Allegra. And so I can see Allegra, and then fexofenadine is actually the drug name. And then I can learn more about fexofenadine. One of its brand names is going to be Allegra, but it's why is this medication prescribed? What special precautions should I follow? What are some of the brand names of the drug? So especially if you've been given something new, or it's been suggested that you take a look into a new supplement, this is a great place to go to get some more information on that. Of course, another awesome resource is your pharmacist or your medical provider that prescribed the medication, but this is another way to get some information, or a great way to be able to ask specific targeted questions when you go in too. And if you want more elucidation or information, you can do that. So that's drugs and supplements. Videos and tools is another really cool section, and then there's some different videos. There's what I always found fun is the health check tools. So there's some little quizzes and stuff that you can take. Let's see, there's a pet allergy quiz, antibiotics quiz. Do you need a hearing test? So there's some, if you exhibit these signs, you might want to talk to the doctor and see if they can help you out with that information. But I'll go back to videos and tools really quick, and you'll see there's also interactive health games. That's kind of fun as well. Here's understanding medical words tutorial. So if you're interested in learning what sometimes parts of these words mean, so like osteo means bones, so when we talk about things like osteoporosis, foot is pod or ped, so podiatry. It's just a great wealth of information. Good for kids who are learning as well. That's a really good way to get some information in there. Continuing along this left side, there's also medical tests. So if you've recently been given an order for a specific type of test, this is a great place to go to see what that test is used for, so that you can really even more fully understand, or if you have any questions, this can give you some information on what that test is and sort of how it works. So let's say we were doing a calcium blood test. You can click on that and it'll tell you what the blood test actually measures, what is it used for, why would you need it, what are some symptoms, and what do the results mean. So it's, and again, these are just guiding topics. It's always best to ask your medical professional if you need more specifics related to your particular situation, but these are great places to start for information and background. And then further here on the left is a medical encyclopedia. So if you this is another great place to go. I know if I click on D, maybe I would like to learn more about dementia. I can click here and then I will be given an overview page, and then from here I can follow many different links to get more information. You can keep reading and it'll give you a whole bunch of information. So there is a lot of good resources here. Now, if you're, looking at this going, wow, there's a lot written. How can I make sure that it's easily digestible and something that I can read quickly? Or, I want to show my kids how to find reliable health information. Is there something that's written here that's more along, a little bit easier speed so that I can get them used to it? There's a whole section down here for easy to read materials, and these are purposely written to be, very just generally consumable for the regular person, not anything too fancy schmancy. So something like what is acne, and you'll see here it says it's also available in Spanish, but if I click what is acne, it's going to open it in a new page, and it's written so that in this case it's written so that the kids can kind of, or teens can kind of digest it. But so if you're wanting to get into this but you don't want to be overwhelmed and you feel like, oh, I don't want to have an information dump overload and get anxious, feeling overwhelmed about how much, check out the easy to read materials. As well, down here in the bottom is health information in multiple languages. So as I talked about earlier, sometimes you'll see, like we saw in sun exposure, it said, oh, there's also information in other languages, and we followed that link. Here's another way to get to information in multiple languages. So if I click that link down there at the bottom, I can pick the specific language I'm looking for. So say I'm looking for materials in German, I could click that and then I will get a list of the articles that have been translated or that appear in German. So that's another great way to help find information if English is not your primary or language that you grew up reading. Take a look. Hopefully there's something available in the language that you are most comfortable reading in. In addition to that, we also have healthy recipes. So it's not just, a bunch of medical information. There's also tips for staying healthy. So one thing I found earlier was if I click lunch, there's some healthy recipes. Here's a heart healthy recipe for macaroni and cheese. I love macaroni and cheese, but it can get really, really, really fatty really, really fast. So this is a great heart healthy recipe. See if I click on there. It talks about the prep time, number of servings, and one thing I really like is you also get the nutrition information as well. So if you're following the recommendations of a dietitian or you're working on some kind of program where you need to know this kind of details, that's going to be on those healthy recipes. And say I want to print out this recipe or save it, keep it for later, I want to share it with somebody. This is how I would do this, and this method is going to work for pretty much any information that you find here that you'd like to share. In the right hand corner, you're always going to have these options for email. So you can email the page to the friend, you can print it, you can share it to Facebook, you can tweet it, or you can post it to Pinterest. And a lot of times things like these recipes are nice things to post to Pinterest. A lot of people have Pinterest boards with healthy recipes, so that's one way to use that. And then finally, if I click Espanol here, you see it'll translate the entire page to Spanish. So that's really awesome. At the click of a button, I can toggle between English and Spanish. So that's another great feature. Go back to Medline here. And I actually think that English-Spanish toggle works for the whole website. So that is really, really cool. So that is Medline Plus. It's a quick tour of an awesome resource, but please check it out. If you want to see what topics are new on the site, click What's New, and you'll be able to see anything new that's been added recently. So if you're looking for the most recent information on something and you want to keep an eye on it, check out What's New. You can also set up an RSS feed to notify you when new information is added as well. And again, this is curated by the National Library of Medicine, so it's a very reliable source. You can sign up for their newsletter, as you'll see here, and it is just a great place to start. So the other resource we're going to talk about today for reliable health information is going to be Gale OneFile Science. Now, the OneFile Science is geared towards more of the academic journals and a little bit more research bent. So it's not going to be, quite the same information that you're going to have in Medline Plus. There's going to be more scientific articles. So, it might not be as reliable for the general person researching, a recent diagnosis you might have gotten, or as we talked about, a new drug that you've just recently been prescribed from a medical provider. But there is information that can be used by the general public. It's just a little trickier to find, and I'll show you how to do that. But otherwise, if you're looking for reliable health information that you can use for research or a paper, you're doing any kind of scientific journal searching or research, this is a great place to start as well. And if you're familiar with any of the other Gale OneFile databases that we have, we've talked about them for home improvement and some other areas, education, for homework and studying as well. This is going to function very similarly. So if you've already seen me show the different methods to search content in OneFile, the OneFile science is going to be pretty much the same. So let's get started. So we're going to take a look at sun exposure, as we had taken a look at that topic in Medline Plus. And as you'll see, this doesn't have the topical collection being thrown out there like we had for Medline Plus. It's really just meant for you to start from a deep dive and search for your topic. So it's kind of good to have an idea of what you're looking for in mind. Initially, we can just do a very basic search, and I'm going to search for sun exposure. And you'll see as I start to type in the main search box here, it'll start to give me suggestions for search criteria. So I'll just search on sun exposure. And here's how the results are going to show up here as well. So as you'll see, this is very academic journal heavy. There's 475 results from academic journals. So that's going to be for somebody who's doing some kind of degree research, or a PhD or a scientist looking for clinical studies and tests. And if that's what you're looking for, that's awesome. But if you're just, like me, just average person just looking to get a little bit more information on, sunburn, sun exposure, how I can keep myself safe, you probably want to check out the magazine's results. So the magazines are going to be a little bit more general. They're not going to be written in that same kind of scholarly writing style. So you see, if I click magazines, the articles that I'm getting here really look a little bit more like what you're used to seeing online from a paper you might read, or in something like Better Homes and Gardens. So for instance, here's vitamin D, what's enough? Many people may need much more. So that looks like a good article that's relatively accessible for just about anybody to read and understand. So if I wanted to check out that article, I can click on there. Of course, it'll give me the date and the author of this article, what publication it's from, and its length. There's going to be related information over here on the right hand side. As I'm reading, if I want to highlight specific type of information that I find really interesting. So actually, this first sentence looks really cool. A few minutes of sun exposure on a sunny day can generate huge quantities of vitamin D in a person's body. That sounds like something I want to remember. If I hold my cursor down and hover over those things to highlight them, I can then click the highlight button, add a color there, and I can keep this highlight to have on hand for later. If I click on it again, I can add notes to it. So, and I'll add something about sunny day exposure information, and I can click save, so it'll save that note for me. And then if I wanted to delete this highlight or this note, I could hit delete as well. Define is another option. So if you're finding a term in here that you're not sure what it means, you can highlight it and then hit define. I'm just trying to see if I could find something. So UV rays, let's see what it does if I highlight that and click define. So then you see it's going to come up with some approximations of what it thinks it will get from the dictionary about UV rays, but that's a very, it's not necessarily contextual definition, it's just very much a dictionary definition, so just so you know. And then if this is an article that I'm interested in keeping and keep it on hand for later, I can send it to myself via email. You can download it as a PDF, you can print it, or if you click Get Link, and I think I've showed this before in other databases, you can get this link that you can copy and paste and maybe add to a Word document if you're compiling information, or a bookmark or something like that. And then highlights and notes up here in the upper right hand corner are going to be those highlights and notes that you've specified for this article. If you've taken highlights and notes from other articles as well, if you click view all highlights and notes, that will take you to this page that will group your highlights and notes by the articles that you've chosen. And one important note to make note of here at the top is that the highlights and notes that you're adding right now are specific to this current browser session. So when you close your browser, you lose those highlights and notes. They're basically saved as temporary cookies while you're working in here. So just make sure that you could email these, download, or print them before you're done with this session so that you don't lose all your hard work. That's why I like to copy and paste URLs into my own document as I go, so that if I accidentally close it, I haven't lost anything. But that's just me. So I'm going to click back here to vitamin D, what's enough, and it will return me to the article. And as you'll see, my highlight is still in place here. And like I said, if I wanted to, I could click on there and hit the trash can, and it'll ask me if I want to delete this, and I'm going to go ahead and delete it. I'm good for right now, and that'll delete the note that's also come with it. So that was the main just general search from using the search box. And then we just went over some information about how to share and disseminate that information once you've found an article that you like. I'm going to go back to the main page. And now we're going to take a look at the topic finder. Now I really like the topic finder tool that's available in the Gale OneFile databases. And the reason being is that it's a visual way of seeing the hotspots, or where most of the content is going to be located for your subject. And being a visual learner, it's really nice way for me to be able to research and get kind of a contextual basis of where I am. So I clicked sun exposure, and then it creates this really cool diagram that I can then review. So you'll see there's a wide range of colors here. The red and orange colors are content or subjects that there's more articles on in the database, and the green are things that there's little, not as much information on. So when I click sun exposure, I know one thing I want to learn about is, what if I have low vitamin D? I'd like to learn about that. So one of the big subgroupings under sun exposure is vitamin D. So I'm going to click there, and you'll see it'll come up with some initial results that are specific to vitamin D, but then I can also drill down even into more subtopics underneath there. So it's a really cool way to take a look at the subjects that you're researching. Also, you can see this information as a wheel, if that helps you sort of envision everything as well. I prefer the tiles because I think you get a good judge of the size, and just the amount of content based on the colors are really nice. So I'm going to click vitamin D, and then here's an article on vitamin D deficiency. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and this is from Science News, and I can review that information if I wanted. If I go back to topic finder, I can start, it'll take me to the last topic that I was on, which was vitamin D, and then I can, maybe I want to look at just the deficiency information here. So we'll see what I get. But the topic finder is a really nice way to search for content. Like I said, it's a great way to sort of get a feel for how much is in here. So if you're just starting to think about, researching content or learning more about a diagnosis you've had, this will give you a really quick glance to see, is there a lot of information in this database here about this, or should I just keep to Medline? It really is a nice way to kind of get a feel for that right off the bat. So I'm going to go back to the main page really quick, and we're going to do a subject guide search. Now, the subject guide search looks a little bit more, the results are going to look a little bit more like in a book index. So let me show you what that's going to look like. So again, we're going to do sun exposure. And can you tell I'm excited? It's a nice sunny day today when I'm recording this, so that's nice. So sun exposure, we're going to click search. And then you'll see for the subject that I've entered, there's subdivisions or subtopics located under there, and then these are the different subtopics. So I've got sun exposure, and then I have health aspects, risk factors, research physiological aspects. So maybe if I'm somebody who's been told, hey, you've got a little bit of a vitamin D deficiency, um, but you need to get some exposure to the sun, but you need to watch it. Maybe I want to look at articles in this health aspects subtopic. And then from there, it'll show my results. Again, they're sort of grouped like they were before by format. So there's the academic journals, and then there's the magazines as well. So here's one, sunburn off the chart. That might be something that I might want to check out, or sunscreen. Here's an article on sunscreen. So, actually sunscreen, a catch 22. And then all this articles work the same way in that if I wanted to share it or keep it for later, I use that same information. And then we've got related subjects down here that we can use to sort of chase a trail of research. If I want to learn just more about skin cancer, maybe I'm worried about that, or I can go back to just sun exposure as the main topic, and then search from there again. So that's a subject guide search. Again, you'll see it looks different than Topic Finder, and it kind of the subdivisions or the subtopics under the main are a little different, but it's another great way to get a look at what you're getting for results, and you'll find what you feel works the best for you. And then there's the publication search. Now, this is a really interesting search. Basically, instead of searching for a keyword or a topic or a subject, you're going to be searching for a specific publication. And you're saying, well, I don't know the publication, Sarah. How do I use this? So I think to start off, especially if you're just the average consumer just looking for just regular general consumer interest information on health, this using the publication search is a great way to get ideas for publications that you can look for in the future. And one way to do that is if you click list all publications. So if I don't know the specific name of a publication, I can click list all publications, and I'll get a list of all the publications that have articles in this database. So keep in mind it's articles that are in this database, the publications that are associated with that. But if I want to know what publications in this database are going to be the best for me, just for general information, I can click that list all publications link that I just did. And over here on the right hand side, you can filter your results. You can filter them by subject, by target audience, by country of publication. So there's actually an area here called general and consumer interests. And when I click that, I'm going to get a list of publications in this database that are written more for a general and consumer audience. So Popular Mechanics, that's a magazine that we have in the library, in our library collection. So, I know I'm getting that's the kind of magazine I want to look at. Just a general consumer magazine. I don't need anything too scholarly or too scientific. I just want to do general research. So using this publication search is a great way to sort of get an idea for what other magazines or publications you can keep an eye out for in the future. So if I click Popular Mechanics, it's going to give me information on the dates of the articles that are covered, in this database. So you'll see I can get full text results from January 1st, 1996 to current. So it looks like there's a 30-day delay. And then it tells me a little bit about Popular Mechanics, and it specifically says this is a consumer magazine. This one says with a focus on automotive topics, and then there's other information as well. But from here, you can get ideas for e-magazines you could look for on RB Digital or our new collection Flipster. You can get ideas for physical magazines you can see if you can borrow from our collections. So this publication search, although at first it might seem a little daunting, actually is a really useful way to get ideas for publications to keep an eye on at a later date. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to go back to the main page here. So that is Gale OneFile Science, and like I said, a lot of this is going to be a little bit more scientific academic journal results, but there is going to be some consumer-based health and wellness information. I think that we've shown you some tips on how to sort of find that information that's going to be relevant to us, just for finding reliable health information to keep us abreast of new health information that you can then, clarify with your medical provider or whatnot. So that's Gale OneFile Science.